All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to a special Friday episode of StarJump Shipyard. I am, as always, your host, StarJump Grim. I see StarJump Starlet in chat. Starlet, hello. Hope you're doing well. Salute to you. Everyone give Starlet a little '07. Obviously, Starlet is a part of the StarJump Fleet Viewer slash Hanger Link crew, one of the primary creators of that experience. Hopefully, you all enjoy. And she is critical to keeping it running and keeping it going and keeping it updated with all kinds of new cool features and all that fun stuff. So make sure you give Starlet a little bit of that love. Nice to see you all. It's a bit of a strange day. The fact that we're doing this on a Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, but I thought it was important to do because there's a lot to talk about. We're heading into um, we're heading into the CitizenCon build up starting kind of next week, and there's already some stuff starting to leak out. Probably more to come, especially next week. There'll probably be a lot of stuff leaking out. Um, that's both good and bad, I think, for people. Some people like the leaks, some people don't like the leaks. I will go ahead and tell you right now, as always, we do typically discuss stuff that leaks out. Um, you know, the streams I do, the content I do is heavily revolves around speculation, looking at what's coming. My focus is not to look at the game through the prism of the now. It is to look through the project, for the 1.0 future. So with that in mind, we're going to look at stuff that is, you know, coming out, whether it's a leak or not, and because of that, a lot of times that includes, spoilers and things like that. So we have a few things to cover today. So if you don't want to be spoiled from any possible sitcom news, this may not be the show for you. But I do see a number of people in chat. Nice to see everybody. I see VMXCO. Everyone give VM a little '07 as well, our other StarJump Fleet Viewer crew member. And then Artorius is in chat. Art. Currently getting some work done at the house. I hope it's going well, buddy. Nice to see you. Obviously, Art is the show producer for my content, and he is a huge help. So make sure you give him a little bit of that love. He handles things for me. Okay. Fenrir says, "Hey, Graham, I can't chat long, so I wanted to drop a question real quick. With the updates on the Perseus progress, do you think we may actually see it at CitizenCon, or am I hoping I'm too hard?" I don't think you're on hopium. I think we're going to see the Perseus at CitizenCon. I think they're going to show us something for it. It'll be in the video. We're going to get a sneak peek of it. It won't. I don't. It's definitely coming to IAE, but I think at the very or 95% coming to IAE. But I think they're going to pull back the curtain a little bit on it now. And primarily because I think they want to sort of build hype so that when IE comes around, they sell more of the Perseus. It's an expensive ship, so why not start seeding that now? Thrusters and Dust, hello. I hope you're well, dude. I am going to promote your channel a little bit today because you do great content. But yes, here we go. We're going to jump right into it because we do have a number of things to cover. So we're going to go ahead and slam right into today's stuff. The first one I want to talk about is, let's go ahead and switch over. The first one I want to talk about, everyone, is Day of the Vara. That is currently happening. Um, it's a lot of the same stuff every year. There's some contests going on and some things like that with prizes to win, all that kind of good stuff. There is a selection of paints. That is something that's happened every year as well. So there has been a selection of paints released, and we're gonna cover those. Again, there's a couple of things going on. There's the carved in flesh pumpkin decorating contest. Getting in on that if you enjoy that kind of stuff. The bone collectors scenario and arena commander, and there is the writing contest. Dead Men Tell Short Tales. So if you are an aspiring writer, get in on that. They usually have pretty good prizes for these, by the way. Of course, the big news with this are the ship paints. So there are a few ships that the ship paints come with this year. The paint is called Black Magic, kind of a cool name at the very least. There is a Saber, Aegis Saber with the Black Magic paint. There is a Mirai Guardian with the Black Magic paint, and an RSI Polaris with the Black Magic paint. And there's a 3 paint pack for all of them. Excuse me. I think it's a really cool paint job. I really like it. I only picked up the Polaris one just because you got to, but they are selling previous paints from last year, which was that purple haze paint, which was kind of cool. It actually does look really good on some of the ships, and then some of the gears, the bear helmets, and then there's the Day of the Vara Parasite pack. So get in on that if those interest you at all. If they don't, not a problem. See MBA over on YouTube. Nice to see you. See a lot of great people joining in chat. Glad everyone could make it out. I know it's a kind of a weird day and time for me to be streaming. So, but yes, that's all the kind of stuff. There is a number of featured vehicles on sale today with a couple specific standouts that you may want to pay attention to. Obviously, Buccaneer, Carrack, Caterpillar, Corsair, Cutlass Black, Cutter, Dragonfly, the Guardians, of course, because the new paint applies to them. The Herald, which just had its sensors, by the way. The sensors that open up for scanning, those now open up, by the way. Could that be a little bit of a hint that scanning is coming, the next iteration of scanning? I think so. So yes, all the little scanning panels open up on the Herald. If you ever watched the Drake cinematic I did a few years back, you'll notice I animated those because those parts and pieces were always there. So I could see scanning 2.0 coming online. I think the Herald is going to tie into a few gameplay loops. I think it's going to do heavy scanning gameplay, obviously, data running gameplay, but also hacking. I think the Herald's going to tie into hacking in some interesting way. We got the Mule, the Polaris, of course, back on sale. It's $975 price tag. The Saber at $175, again, one of the new paints. The Sulian, the Terrapin, quite a few ships on sale. And then this ship, the Drake Vulture, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, actually. There's been some very interesting developments in regards to salvage, okay? And those changes are interesting, but what they signal is even more interesting, okay? And we're gonna get to that today as well. So, Day of the Vara, definitely take a look at that if you're interested. I did pick up the Polaris paint, but actually have not checked it out in game yet, so that is something I want to do. But speaking of Day of the Vara, we are doing a giveaway courtesy of CIG. Thank you very much, CIG, for that. We're giving away a Saber with Black Magic paint, the one from Day of the Vara. Very easy to get in on that giveaway if you are at all interested. Like my previous giveaways, I am running it through Gleam, so there's a lot of free ways to enter. One of those is to follow the channel, stuff like that. If you're already follow, just go to the Gleam link. It'll automatically give you those. You'll be able to automatically get those if you're already following the channel, so no issues there, okay? But regardless, thank you, CIG, for doing that. The Saber is a really cool ship. It's actually one I've always wanted to own. I don't own it, but it's always one I've wanted to own. And the Black Magic paint looks really good on it. So there you go. If you're interested in that giveaway, follow the Gleam link I just posted down below. That'll get you in on that. I will be doing that giveaway and pulling a winner for that on Sunday. Okay, on this Sunday, which is the 3rd, 4th, the 5th, October 5th. Rockarasso, hopefully I said that right. Thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate that. Mick D says, bet someone is excited for that the Kraken has started production. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Very excited. Thank you for the follow, Zelcon. Okay, there it is. The Saber with Black Magic paint giveaway, courtesy of Cloud Imperium Games, Day of the Vara. Follow that Gleam link to get in on that. Here's that Gleam link one more time for you. Very easy to enter, multiple ways to enter, and all free. So get in on that. All right, next thing we're moving on to is sort of the start of today's discussion, and then we're going to go into some other things. We're going to talk about the monthly report for September 2025. Kind of an interesting monthly report because it's the one leading into the CitizenCon stuff. So it's to be expected that they hold certain information back that would normally go in this monthly report because they want to reveal it at CitizenCon. I think there's some stuff in this monthly report, though, that does heavily hint to what we'll be hearing at CitizenCon, but we'll see. So here we go. We're going to dive right into it. As you know, this is Shipyard. You can see the logo right there. Ding. And because of that, we primarily focus on spaceships and the gameplay features that tie into those spaceships. Because of that, I'm not going to be going through every part of the monthly report. I'm sorry if you wanted that. I just don't typically do that unless I'm doing a weekly chat show or StarJump Station or something like that. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to focus primarily on the ships, the art ships section. Okay. Of which there's some interesting news. It says here, in the UK, work continued to bring the RSI Aurora and the Aegis Hammerhead up to modern standard. The Aurora progressed through Lot 0 and final stages as improvements were made to the component bays, bed access, dashboard placement, entrance method, VTOL setup, and cargo access on the underside. So we heard about CIG probably tackling the Aurora, so they're clearly stating here that it is in active production, getting that sort of pass done on it. One really interesting thing about this is that you see they've named a lot of areas that are getting attention. That's to be expected. That's to be expected with, thank you very much, Art. That's to be expected with this being such an old ship. But I think a lot of those things that we've seen in the RSI design language, especially for interiors, are going to carry over. So things like the Meteor and the Zeus, I think we're going to have aspects of those carry over into the Aurora. So I'm really, really excited about that. I think there's a lot of like easy wins for them carrying over some of the new RSI dashboard stuff and UX stuff, obviously, into the Aurora. One of the biggest things I'm curious about is if the airlock is going to get any attention. I think that would be a pretty big lift to change that. However, one of the things they do mention here is entrance method. So that makes me wonder if maybe the Aurora is getting a kind of a bigger change to how you get into the ship. It could just be an animation change, but it's still pretty interesting nonetheless. So hopefully we'll see more on that soon. But it sounds like it's progressing really well. If it's in Lot 0 and final stages, we could see this updated Aurora Pass as soon as, honestly, as soon as maybe IAE, possibly CitizenCon, but more likely IAE. Twisted Gesture, thank you for the follow. It says here, for the Hammerhead, focus was on implementing the improvements made to the base corridor kit to the recent Idris release, alongside making sure the component bays and relays are suitably placed for and accessible. So this is one of my complaints about the behind the ship stuff. Moradun, thank you for that follow. Some of you know that one of the complaints I have about the behind the ships content that CIG's been putting out this year is that they're a little bit more marketing focused, meant to hype you up to purchase the ship, and that's partially because they're just so short. We really have lost some of that developer context on why certain decisions are made, what's being done on the ships, and I think that was equally the issue on the Idris behind the ships episode. We don't really know what corridor improvements were made to the base corridor kit. We don't know what those improvements are, so they reference it here, but we don't really know what that means. Is it texture updates, lighting updates, optimization updates? Is it all all the above? I don't know. But regardless, it's an interesting thing. I think we'll see some of that carry over. One thing I wouldn't mind seeing from the Idris kit come into the Hammerhead is some of the color contrast stuff. I've always thought the Hammerhead was a bit kind of muddy looking inside. It didn't have like a lot of clear color contrasts in it. Maybe, and that's just a subjective point by me, by the way, you may disagree, but I would love some color contrast elements from the Idris to come into the Hammerhead. And then again, whatever they have to do to bring those component relays up. If you remember back to the very first preview we had of resource management and the relay system, they used the Hammerhead, and we all sort of thought that was going to be one of the first ships to adopt it. It wasn't, but it does look like they're pushing the Hammerhead through so that when resource management engineering do come out, hopefully sooner rather than later, the Hammerhead will support it out the gate. But if you remember going all the way back, that was one of the first previews we had was the Hammerhead in regards to ship relays and resource management. Moving further down, and real quick before we move on, it's interesting hearing about the Hammerhead getting some updates with some of the salvage stuff we're going to talk about. I really do hope CIG puts some attention back on the Reclaimer sooner rather than later. It's very clear that's becoming a very important ship to the future of the game, and one that, while I know it's going to be a big lift because CIG has stated that they kind of need to redo large sections of the ship, I really do think it's going to be worth it. Not only for the people that currently own the ship, but for people that in game are working up that salvaging ladder of gameplay. You don't want to work all the way up to get that in game level ship, right? So your Orion, your Reclaimer, your Arastra, whatever. You don't want to work up to get to that in-game ship, and then you get the in-game ship, and that's the most broken of them. You know what I mean? That's going to feel like a gut punch, and that's not going to be a great reward for the player. So I do think as we head towards 1.0, I think CIG is going to have to give those in-game ships a really solid look, because that's the reward for progressing through those gameplay loops. You know what I mean? And the reward can't be worse than the ships underneath it, right? It's got to feel like you achieved something. And the Hammerhead or the Reclaimer does have issues. So moving further down, says here the Paladin progressed into LOD 0 phase. No surprise there. We knew that one was coming, with final adjustments being made to the main quad turret to ensure its movement is unhindered in both flight and landed states. The downstreams teams kicked off their work on the ship too, which pretty much means, by the way, the downstream teams means audio, visual effects, closeout, all that stuff. So we are barreling towards, and if all that work was done in September, that means we are very clearly barreling towards this thing being released at CitizenCon. So for all of you Paladin owners, now is the time to switch the excitement lever. It's the Paladin is definitely going to be coming. It's there. It's ready to go. It's ready to go. The Mist Hull B is now well into the white box phase. The majority of the interior was implemented to the required level, probably borrowing heavily from the Hull A, by the way. While adjustments are currently being made to the exterior mesh to meet the gate requirements. Now, the big question mark with this one is, what did CIG change on the carry, the cargo matrix, the cargo grid, in terms of how the ship carries its respective cargo? I think we all are thinking that it possibly got increase in its SEU, but we'll have to see. Champion of the Grill says, first time catching you live. I wanted to say I really enjoy your content. I'm enjoying the way you were talking, taking your Connie rework. It's something I wish CIG would put in the game. Thank you very much, Champion of the Grill. Hope you're doing well. Please, feel free to join us anytime for one of these live streams. I do a Tuesday during the day live stream, and then usually a Thursday night one. I postponed the Thursday night one to do today because I was gathering more information, for us to discuss. So. Hull B. So yeah, we just need to see more about that one. I think that the Hull B is going to be a nice contrast to the Raft in terms of just carry capacity, but also ease of loading and all that. I know there's some people out there that do not like the Raft. I think the Mist Hull B will be a nice counter to that. So I think it's going to be a great ship to get in the game. It fits well within current gameplay loops that we've seen this year with the amount of cargo we're running, the type of cargo we're running, stuff like that. So I do think that the Hull B has a really good place in the current game. Let's see here. Following last month's work, the Drake Ironclad and Ironclad Assault, plus the updated command module, which is a new feature, by the way, are approaching their combined white box gate review. Now, I think that's what this image is here, by the way. I think this is white box Drake Ironclad. And for those of you that are like, well, it still looks, well, it looks too far along for white box. One of the things CIG mentioned quite a few months back was that, let's see here, Lazy Donuts just getting us started. Thank you very much, Lazy. But they talked about how the Drake Ironclad visually looked much further along than it technically is because they're borrowing heavily from the Drake kit. Okay. So I think that that's what you're seeing in this image. It's still very white box. There's still a lot of rough areas, but they're using parts and pieces from the Drake kit. And I think a lot of what you're seeing here are Drake kit elements. And that's why it kind of looks further along. Wrecker ASKR says Ironclad release thoughts, likely next Invictus launch. Yeah, I think the Ironclad is going to be targeted for Drake Defense Con. If you're a member of our past Invictus, they canceled Drake Defense Con, but they did put out a message that they would be back next year bigger and better than ever. And I think that's because they are planning on the Ironclads coming out at Drake Defense Con. And I think what I think they're going to do next year is I think they're going to sort of do some in-game lore thing to make it to where there is Invictus, but I think Drake is going to try to overshadow Invictus with Defense Con. I think that's what you're going to see, which will be kind of fun. And I think we'll get both the Ironclad and the Ironclad Assault at the same time. Possibly some Caterpillar updates at that time too, at the very least with the command module feature. So another note here, it says count them, 4 unannounced vehicles also continued development throughout September. The first is approaching Lot Zero review, which means it's pretty far along. It's got to go to downstream teams, but pretty far along. The second progressed through the Lot Zero gate, which means it finished its Lot Zero review and is now pushing into the final stage, downstream teams closing out the ship. So those are 2 ships that are kind of there. Now that could be stuff we discussed not too long ago, the Asperia Stinger, okay, of which there was some leaks regarding to some page strings on the website for sale pages for the Asperia Stinger based off the Vandul's Stinger. And then the other one was the Gray's Market Shiv, which I know Paul Shelley, the Astro Historian, and a couple other people showed some imagery of what it possibly could be. So yeah, maybe. We'll just have to see. We'll have to see. It also, one of those ships right there could be the Drake Flappy Bird that we've seen, or what we think is the Drake Flappy Bird. Although maybe not. Again, it's all speculation. Hopefully we get some of those leaks soon. I mean, for all we know, these 2 images here, one of these images could be that Drake Flappy Bird, for all we know. It absolutely could be. I think this is Ironclad, but it could be that other ship that we've affectionately called the Flappy Bird. Lone Star says, I wonder if other manufacturers will get added to Defense Con, like maybe Gray's Market if that's a ship seller. That's a really interesting point, Lone Star, and I hadn't thought about that, but you know, I do love that. I love that idea. Carlos, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Yeah, I had not thought about that, but I really like that idea. And I would love if Drake still was the sponsor of it. So it was still Drake Defense Con, or maybe it's just rebranded to Defense Con, but maybe some other manufacturers that don't get highlighted at Invictus are pulled into it. So think ships, companies that make ships that don't have contracts with the UEE. I think that would be really cool and a really smart thing for CIG to do to sort of spread the love a little bit there so that Defense Con isn't just limited to Drake ships. I mean, I'm a Drake lover, but I think that's a really good idea. So, yeah, Lone Star. I should mention that to people, or maybe if there's some CIG people watching the show today, that's a good idea. Y'all should run with that. That's a good idea. Okay, so continuing on here, the third of those unannounced vehicles being worked on, the third is a variant of a popular recent release. It's receiving gray box and Lot Zero review or Lot Zero work in tandem due to the nature of the changes. The fourth passed its gray box review early in September with Lot Zero work due early October. Some of the downstream teams began their task too. So those two ships as well are very close to completion. I don't know what they are, but I have some possible semi good guesses of what they could be. So for the recent release, I think we're going to get possibly a variant of the Wolf. I've seen a lot of other creators say no on that. I don't have any inside information on that, by the way. I'm totally wildly guessing, but it could be the Wolf. Maybe we're getting a variant of that. It seems like it's a smart thing to do. The Wolf, I think, was one of the more popular new ships they released this year, and I think that is deserving of a variant. I'd like to see a variant. Giuseppe says, what do you think the Flappy Bird will be? Cargo, combat, or something else? Originally, I thought bounty hunting, but we'll have to see on that. Another possible ship that one of these could be is something I've talked a little bit about, which is the Ares Starfighter series of ships. I'm still pretty convinced we're going to get a beam variant of those ships. Thank you very much for the follow there, Podolkaros Krosmo. Hopefully I said that right. I'm terrible with names. So that could be a possible variant that we're getting is the Ares Starfighter beam weapon variant. Another variant we could be getting is an RSA Apollo variant. The Apollo variant would be a little strange because you would have, I'm not sure if an Apollo variant helps the Apollo or hurts the Apollo. It's already a ship that's got two very similar ships, Triage and Medevac, that already, in my mind, give new buyers a little bit of confusion. I think adding yet another Apollo that is, for example, maybe not medical at all, maybe it's something different, general purpose or whatever, just adds even more confusion. So I'm not sure where CIG is going to go with that. I think if CIG were to concept the Apollo now, they wouldn't have done two medical variants. They would have done one medical variant, and then they would have done a variant that's completely different, and they would have marketed it as such. So, yeah. Citizen Ninja says Wolf Racing variant. Yeah, maybe. I could see that. Scrolling on down, sounds here the North American teams began the month finalizing fixes for the RSI Apollo ships ahead of their release. Obviously, those released last year or last month, sorry. So they were doing a lot of fixes to sort of get those in order for release. That's pretty standard with ships. We know that there were some changes to med gels and other things going into that. So I think the Apollo was one of those ships that was worked on right up until the end. Says here, Lot Zero for the RSI Perseus was also passed early on in the month, so early on in September, with the team moving on to the final touches and downstream teams beginning to close out the ship. So that's big news, everyone. That means through September, probably into October, they're kind of in ship closeout phase. They're probably prepping everything for an IAE launch of the Perseus. I would love to say that the Perseus is coming for CitizenCon, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's IAE. It makes sense for it to release during IAE. I don't think CIG has another big ship ready. And if CitizenCon is releasing the Paladin and the Stinger at the same event, CitizenCon, those would probably be two pricey ships in and of themselves, that $300-$400 range. And I could see CIG maybe focusing CitizenCon on some of those medium medium-sized ships that are kind of pricey, medium to large, I guess I would say. And then we'll see more of the large to capital at IAE. So next, but it does say for all you Perseus owners, we're almost there. We're almost there. They're almost done with another big RSI ship. And then the question will be, are they moving on to the RSI Arastra or the RSI Galaxy? Personally, don't think they are, by the way, but we'll have to see. Next here, it says a white box phase. This is a big one, everyone. Grab your seats. Grab your seats. Says here, the white box phase officially kicked off for the Drake Kraken in the latter half of the month. Last month's pre-production phase led to numerous improvements and adjustments to navigation, flow, and interactions throughout the ship. This is great to hear. For any of you that know or have ever seen my Shipyard video on the Kraken, which I'll pull up a link for you. For those of you that have watched that, when I do the cross-section tour of it, you will notice that there was a lot of like stairways and stuff like that. I think CIG is going back and adding in a lot of things that weren't in that original cutaway, like elevators and lifts and freight elevators and all that kind of stuff. By the way, here's the link to that video. Make sure you go give that a watch later if you haven't. I've hit 106,000 views on it. Quite proud of that. But yes, I think that that they probably worked a little bit on the air car system. That was going to be kind of a new thing for that ship, so we'll have to see what that is like. I see Inkisune says, StarJump, what do you imagine the cargo train will be like on the Kraken? That's always been one of the biggest question marks for me. For example, multiple small cars, one large car. So I'm pretty sure it's one large car. Think more like a sled, like a hover sled that will move along a track and essentially moves back and forth. It was originally stated to carry 12 SCU. They may change that. Was it 12 or 8? Either 8 or 12 SCU. That might grow. But what I hope is I hope that there are freight elevators on the deck of the Kraken that are built onto the floor. So you move cargo into a grid on the floor goes down and then goes to an access point where the air car can access them to move that to the main cargo bay of the Kraken. VMXEO says, I'd imagine the cargo train won't be a whole lot different from the ones they added to ASD. Yeah, I agree. Probably the same. Kind of a moving, a horizontal elevator, essentially. Art Producer says, Grim, audio a bit low. Okay, let me see if I can boost here. Sorry about that. Everyone, is the audio low for everybody? I'm going to try to boost this a bit. Bear with me. I need to... Let me see if I can do this. Okay, sorry if the audio... I've had some audio issues. Hold on one second. Hello, check one. How's that, everybody? Is that coming in a little louder? Art, let me know if that's coming in better, buddy. This is a big one, though. In Rain just subscribed. Thank you very much. Sending the javelin overhead, giving you the double salute for that subscription. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, I had the gain a little bit low, so thanks, Art. Appreciate it. Thank you for that subscription, though. I do appreciate it. So yeah, the Kraken going into white box production is super exciting. I do hope that the Kraken benefits from what the Ironclad has been going through. And it's one of the reasons that the Ironclad maybe has been a little slow to mature and get through white box, is because maybe CIG is a company not only, you know, accounting for the Ironclad, but accounting for work on the Kraken as well. So it'll be interesting to see how the Kraken moves through production. One of my hopes is that during CitizenCon, we get sort of a reveal of that new concept passed on the Kraken. See what they've done on the inside, see what changes they've made. They did that for the Pioneer for us on last CitizenCon. I think that was a very successful reveal. It got people excited for the Pioneer. Again, another very expensive ship. And on these expensive ships, I do think CIG sort of needs to pull back the curtain a bit and let us see what they're working on. So I am hoping for a CitizenCon sneak peek of the Kraken updated concept. I think that'd be really great. It could be a little early for that, but honestly, I don't think so. I would like to see what it looks like. So, and the timing kind of works out because last CitizenCon, they showed us the concept work on the Pioneer, and then it went into production like the week after CitizenCon. And that's sort of what's happening here. Obviously, it's going into production a little bit before CitizenCon, but it's sort of the same kind of thing. Moving on though, and well, actually not moving on. One of the things I do hope they add to the Kraken that I do think it desperately needs is freight elevators and freight movement systems. So like VMXEO has said, having some sort of horizontal sled, horizontal elevator, whatever that can move cargo from front to back of the ship, specifically on the flight decks. I'm hoping that there are areas marked out where you can place cargo and then it will just drop below. You know what I mean? It'll just sink down. It's like an elevator that's flush with the surface of the deck. That's what I hope. Matthew says, do you think the Kraken will get a repair bay? So the Kraken's two hangars are supposed to be able to repair, rearm, and refuel. We know that. Could it get additional repair services? Possibly. We'll have to see. I'm also suspecting that we might see an update to the Dragonfly Bay. I think CIG does need to think that through. I almost am wondering if the Dragonfly Bay is going to become a little bit more of a modular room now that CIG is sort of leaning back into modules. But I'm curious to see what the medical bay is going to look like on the ship. And, you know, various other areas that were just kind of left vague before. The original cross section for the Kraken 2 was very like white box, simple model stuff. So, yeah, we'll have to see. I'm just hoping we get some information on that. The Kraken is obviously a ship that pulls people's attention. And then lastly, it says here, 2 unannounced vehicles progressed as well. One moved through the gray box phase, the other entered white box. So those ships farther off, those are not going to be this year's ships. Those are more likely next year's ships. But what that does is bring up an interesting point. We don't know if next year is going to be like this year, where there is a content cadence patch every month or almost every month with a new ship being released, or if CIG is going to swing back to their old way of doing it where they do like a patch every quarter. I think we're assuming that it's every month again next year. I think it would be good to hear from CIG on if they thought that was successful or not, right? So we'll have to see if it was. I a little bit worried that trying to keep up with that with the game so heavily still in development is too much for CIG, but we'll have to see. Lemming says, StarJump Graham, I think Jared said they were going to slow down a little. Yeah, I think I could actually see the benefits of slowing down a little bit. Maybe there's a patch every 2 months. You know what I mean? Like a new patch every 2 months. It would give people longer to get through some of these events. I almost feel like some of the events, there was just too little time to do them, especially when you're battling bugs and stuff. I actually would be very much in support of them moving to a 2-month cadence, every other month cadence. Yeah. Thank you, Lemming. Appreciate it. Everyone, hope everyone give Lemming an 07. Does a little hard work over there on the Info Runners channel, sometimes helping out. So that is the ship news in the PU monthly report. Really, really cool stuff. Exciting, kind of gives us some hints towards CitizenCon. We'll have to see how many ships come at CitizenCon. We don't know if we're getting 2, 3, 5. We're just going to have to see. Bingo says, I hope they address the pile of tech debt with a little more focus. I do too. I think that they was really a battle for them this year, solving problems, but constantly bringing new content to us, while still in the back burner keeping features updated. That had to be a lot to handle. I think when they originally talked about the year of playability or whatever they called it, I don't think I anticipated that also meant so much new content. Now, don't get me wrong. I've appreciated the new content. I've played Star Citizen more this year than I've had any other year combined, probably. That's got to be considered a success, right? I think you would all agree that's got to be considered a success. But yeah, you know, on the subject of ships, really quick, everybody, I wanted to bring to your attention a content creator that's doing really kick-ass content. Dupondius, thank you for the follow. Many of you know that here at StarJump, well, first off, there's a lot of creators out there that just, you know, they rehash the news of the week. They do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and that's all great. Love that stuff. I consume that content just like you all. But there are sometimes content creators that create content that is just really unique and and it's either unique content or approaches something that's really unique. And I always like to highlight those people and connect with them. And I met a guy out at Equinox this past was that, when did I go to that? July? Was that July? Yeah, Equinox in July. And I was watching some of his content randomly the other day, and I was like, damn, this is really good. I need to help propagate this a little bit. Although they've got a very fast growing um, community over on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and highlight Dusty Star. His channel is right here, posting it into chat, is Thrusters and Dust. Make sure you go over to his YouTube channel. Please give him a subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that kind of good stuff. He's got some really great videos, and he releases these like factory manuals on the ships he covers. So he's got one here on the Cutlass Black. He just released a couple days ago one on the Spirit. The videos all sort of follow the same theme. They're just extremely well produced. It's the type of thing that, like, several times in the past I've wanted STARJUMP to do something like this, and I've even attempted to do some things like this, and I always wanted to come up with a video series that had really strong branding, really focused discussion, and really like clear points that they're making, but doing it in a sort of a package that's unique and interesting, and just different than someone talking about a ship and playing B-roll in the background. No shade to those those content creators, but it is a pet peeve when I'm watching a video and they're talking about the Caterpillar, but I'm watching B-roll of a Crusader Star Runner. I get it's a low barrier to entry, but for those creators out there that are putting in the work of coming up with unique visuals and all that stuff, really want to support those groups. So please take this link. There's Thrusters and Dust right there in the YouTube chat. That is who I'm talking about here. Everyone give him an 07. Go to that YouTube link. Make sure you follow the channel. Again, really great stuff. And you all know that's pretty important to me. I like to highlight really good content. I am now subscribed to their content. I'm gonna have Dusty on a STARJUMP station really soon. Artorius, who's my producer, Artorius is in chat. I think I added Dusty to our guest list. I want to get him on an upcoming episode really soon where we talk about ships. Again, just does really great content, and I want to have him on. So we'll work that out. Yeah, does amazing videos. He's already got 5.85 thousand followers, and he's only got 15 videos on the channel. So that should give you an idea of the quality of content he's making. Okay, quality of content he's making. And again, that's the whole thing with STARJUMP 2 and other creators that we support. Trist Pone, Info Runners, and they're, Soul Citizens. There's different groups out there that do content in a way that I think is unique. And sometimes it's visuals, sometimes it's the points they're making, sometimes it's interesting discussions. So for example, in the case of Soul Citizens, I think they just do really interesting discussions about the game. And so anytime a creator does something in a unique way, I want to support it. So make sure to support this channel. I'm going to be blasting this out, this YouTube channel out to my subscribers on YouTube right when this stream ends. Thrusters and Dust, thank you, man. We will definitely collaborate. I hope you're well, and thank you for making amazing content. Yeah, and everyone, he has really cool ship manuals and stuff you can download. They're really awesome. So. All right, so that is that. We're going to move over to the next thing I want to talk about, and that is for the recent leaks surrounding the focus testing group and the flight model. Yogi Klatt from CIG did come out and say that he was a little disappointed that results of that focused flight model testing group had leaked out. And he kind of just sort of talked about how when that stuff leaks out, there's some friction that's caused and all that kind of stuff, and can actually slow development of a feature. Here's my thoughts on this, and everyone's going to have sort of a different opinion. Yeah, no problem, Wrecker. And this is my opinion on this. This was going to leak out. Everything leaks out. You know, and let me correct myself. I don't think it should leak out, right? I don't think it should. I think people should respect the NDAs they sign. I sign NDAs all the time at my work. VMXEO in chat. VMXEO deals with a lot of NDAs, even related to CIG, or has dealt with NDAs related to CIG. Me and him talk about stuff all the time, and we still don't really like talk about NDA stuff. And even if like, you know what I mean, we respect it, and we're talking privately sometimes. NDAs do need to be respected. So I'm a little disappointed that it leaked out, but it was always going to leak out. Here's something I would say. I don't know if this would ever get back to Yogi, but hopefully it does. I think Yogi is a super awesome dude. I love hearing him talk. It's he's passionate about the game that he's working on. But here's my advice to Yogi, and I'm sure he's gotten this from people, but I'll add my voice to the list. Do what you think is best for this game. Put it out there for us to test. Take whatever feedback we give that is useful. If we give feedback that's not, then it's not. One thing, though, that Yogi has to do is trust his instincts a little bit too, because he has inside knowledge on what this game is going to be that we don't have. So even if we are testing it now, we're testing it for the now experience. We're not testing it for the future of the game, which is what really matters. So while the testing now is super, super important, I think it's only important in the context of how we feel about it now, right? And not how we feel about it in the future. For example, let me give you one example. Ship-to-ship combat, PvP combat, let's say that. Right now, with our current medical system, death of a spaceman or lack of in the game, the way insurance doesn't work yet, all that kind of stuff, persistence is not really a thing yet, not real persistence, which means people are doing PvP combat in a way that is going to be wildly different than when all those systems are in the game. You think PvPers aren't going to approach combat differently when Death of a Spaceman's in the game? I would imagine they will. So again, the feedback is good, but without those other systems in the game yet that are going to heavily affect how people play, I think the data you gain from those tests is only good to a certain degree, right? And beyond that, since we don't have that information that Yogi has, beyond that, he's just sort of got to trust his gut, put what he has to put into it. Now, the other thing I would say about the testing group is I'm assuming that the testing group they pulled were probably people that do a lot of flight model issue council reports. Maybe they're pilot. I don't know if it's Avenger 1 or something, but maybe it's pilots that do a lot of flying and combat flying. And I do think that's great. I think those players absolutely should have a part to play in that testing. But another caveat to make is the flight model can't just feel good to the people that low fly, to the people that combat, do PvP combat or PvE combat. It's got one of the groups that flight has got to feel really good to are brand new players, because this game is going to need a lot of players when we get to 1.0. Okay, we're going to need a lot of players for it to stay alive. So in some ways, these focused testing groups, I hope there's a cross section of players. So I hope there are the really high-end, flight model focused players. They obviously have a lot of knowledge to bring to bear, and I respect that. But I also think they're bringing in a few just like people who could give a rat's ass about the flight model. And the reason that is important is because you are going to need in the future the people that don't give a rat's ass about the flight model. You're going to need them to also like the way ships feel, and they need to like it pretty much the first time they play. which means that the flight model's got to be accessible to someone that don't give a damn about the flight model. You know what I mean? Rico says Avenger 1 said he was not in the new flight model testing yesterday. Okay. So, but if I had to guess, I think it's people primarily that do a lot of issue council reports on the flight model. Maybe Avenger does that, maybe he doesn't. I'm not real sure. But regardless, I just really hope that the testing group is a cross section. People that are flight model focused and people that doesn't matter. But it's still but the flight experience still needs to be good, because you need to attract those new players. If a new player joins the game in 1.0 and flying ships is terrible, or if flying ships is so nuanced that it's not a fun experience for a new player who just wants to get in and do some gameplay, that'll be a problem. Night Stalker, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. So you see what I mean? It's about getting a cross section. All the points and all the opinions are valid, but we do need all of them. Fry M says, I heard it was a lot of Shadow Moses org. Yeah, I heard that too. That's very possible. And again, if they're a big flight focused org, that makes a lot of sense. Totally makes sense. Thank you, Shadow Moses, for putting in the hard work effort to test. I hope there's some of those other players in there too, personally. But I feel for Yogi. He's got a really hard job. He's trying to balance a system for now that we all enjoy, that he knows is going to change with more and more systems that come on board. He's got to make a wide cross section of people happy. PvPers, PvEers, combat people, industrial people, people that don't give a rat's ass. So it's just a huge section of the player base that has to be pleased here. And that is a really, really difficult job. So I guess the thing I would say to all of you, the STARJUMP community, any other communities that are in here, is if you see Yogi out there talking about this, or you see people out there getting very venomous over flight model stuff, just remind them, Yogi's got a hard job. In some ways, he's got an impossible job. He's never going to please everybody. It's just impossible. I wouldn't want to have his job. If I worked at CIG, his job would be the one I didn't want. Okay? Because it's going to be a big challenge for him. Okay, moving on. Dan Richardson, thank you very much for subscribing. Appreciate that. Salute to you. I give you the double salute for the subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Okay, we're going to get into a few other things here. The next thing I wanted to talk about was some Evocati data mines. Speaking of NDA, but this stuff is already leaked out. So there's nothing we can do about it. It's already leaked out. That's my policy. Let's see here. Who did the who gifted the tier 5? So Bunker Fist. Oh my good. Bunker Fist gave out 5 community subs. Thank you very much, Bunker Fist. I'm going to release your banning on our Discord and allow you to speak again in the Discord. I'm just kidding. Bunker's always there talking in Discord. Thank you, Bunker. Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you for those gifted tier subs. Bunker Fist is one of our very active members on the STARJUMP Discord. We love him. Bunker, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Salute to you. But we're going to switch over and talk about a little bit of stuff possibly coming in the Evocati builds. Again, look away if you don't want to be spoiled. There were things such as new ground-to-air missiles, both the Spearhead and Agitator, size 1 and size 2 respectively. Med-gel recharge stations. We've seen some hints of those not too long ago. Holiday Ninja, thank you for the follow and the subscription. Really appreciate that. Salute. Really appreciate that support, everyone. You're absolutely amazing. Follower count has been great. Technoid, thank you for that follow. But we have some new locations, some Frontier Fighters locations. We have a Wicklow Jacket, Palantino Heavy Armor. We have a couple of new factions here, the Dead Saints, FTL Courier, Hawkrow Agency, Intersect Defense Solutions. Really cool. I need to go back and look at the 1.0 guild stuff and see if any of those groups tie into those guilds. I think they do. Couple of new characters, Captain Martel and Gabe Wendell from the People's Alliance. And then some new mission events and then which I won't go over too much. And then there is a lot of signs that Nyx is currently progressing. Many of you know, if you watch my content, I've actually been saying for probably about the past 6 months that I think Nyx is coming and coming really soon, possibly going into PTU by the end of this year. It was some of oops, sorry everyone, just saying, it was some of the information that that VMXEO and me were talking about related to some of the stuff that was being data mined that led us to believe that Nyx was possibly coming soon. There was some Nyx Levski stuff in the gameplay files going all the way back to last CitizenCon or last IAE. So there's been some files there for a while. So I've really thought for about the last year, actually, that Nyx was coming. So some more signs that Nyx is coming. We had a whole bunch of voice files leak out the other day related to Nyx as well. We got some new localization that heavily implies that the inventory rework is working in game on some level. That's great to hear because the inventory system needs a major rework. Physical job board strings were spotted, which is kind of cool. So that would be something where if you're in a landing zone or something, you can go up to the job board and there would be missions or projects or tasks on there that need to be completed. Those could be just to get it out of the Moby glass. Some people aren't going to like that. It's going to require a little bit more effort to get to those, but some people will like it, and I do think it'll make the landing zones a little bit more interesting as well. They'll give them some unique stuff you can do in that landing zone. So maybe those job boards that are in landing zones have you doing stuff within the landing zone, which could be cool. I mean, maybe it's going down a dark alley in Loreville to do some transaction or something like that. Let's see here. And then last but not least is a possible new ship name, Illyrium. It's an interesting one. I don't know what manufacturer that would go with. If it's a new, oops, let me zoom out a little bit here. Can I zoom out? Yep, there it is, Illyrium. I don't know if there's a way to, oops, I actually don't know if that is would tie in very, very well with a current ship manufacturer. But anyways, thank you for subscribing, Gazlaw. Appreciate it. Salute to you. But again, some stuff is coming. Going back to the Nyx discussion, it's more than just strings and stuff that have popped out. I really think the storyline that we've been going through for this entire year has been leading us to Nyx. I think that was the point of it, right? Was to lead us to Nyx. So with that understanding, what that could lead to is sort of some sort of climax in our story at the end of this year that then starts the Nyx PTU testing cycle, either after CitizenCon or after IAE. Maybe that would be on testing for a couple months, and then sometime Q1 next year, Nyx goes live. That would be really great. Night Stalker, thank you for the subscription. Salute to you, buddy. Sending the javelin overhead. That really does help everybody. This support really, really does help. But that would be great. That would be 3 out of the 5 systems that we need for 1.0 in the game at that point, which is great progress finally. And then after that, it would just be Castra and Terra, of course, which are probably going to have a longer runway, but getting 3 systems in the game, I think would be really cool. Gives us a wide variety of play spaces as well. So there was some additional stuff that came into the leaks category, and this goes back to our discussion on the Vulture, the Drake Vulture, and salvage in general, and that is a complete structural salvage overhaul. Okay. Bunkerfist says, why can't we see your stream in the community hub on RSI? That's a great question, Bunker. I thought it was plugged in there, but I might need to go check. Maybe I'm not plugged in there anymore. I need to look. Drazen, hello. Drazen's in chat, everybody. But yes, complete structural salvage overhaul. Structural salvage has undergone major changes to prep for future systems. This will allow all salvage mechanics for all ships. Oh, this will affect all salvage mechanics for all ships and will increase complexity, adjusting salvaging times, materials collected, and add refining as part of the flow for materials. Now, what future gameplay systems is this alluding to? This is alluding to crafting and base building, and probably more specifically crafting. Okay, many of you have heard me say previously that I do think crafting is coming, because I think CIG does want to get base building in the game, but I think crafting is going to come first. Okay, and yes, repair as well by just default. Salvage, repair, we know it kind of, they go hand in hand. They're just sort of the reverse of the other. But they say here, ship identity and role definitions. They say each salvage ship now has a distinct identity and specialized roles. So the reclaimer will be quantity over quality. It's the fastest structural salvage processing designed for large-scale operations. And then the vulture, which is they consider sort of the lone wolf, is a balanced middle ground ship, serves as a reference point for all other ships. Now, they don't mention the fortune here, but let's swing back to the reclaimer. There's something interesting here. If the reclaimer is sort of our in-game salvage ship, right, and it focuses on quantity over quality, it does make you wonder if we're going to get a capital-sized salvage ship like the reclaimer that focuses on quality over quantity and does the reverse of that, right? That could be really interesting. We've heard CIG mention 2 salvage ships in the past. One is the RSI starter salvage ship, which they showed at the same time they showed the Wolf concept, which could be coming soon. So it's like a little RSI salvager that I guess would be even a more focused starter than the Fortune and the Vulture, or cheaper at least. And then they mentioned an orange salvage ship, which we all assume is Argo, possibly Consolidated Outland, but more likely Argo. Could that orange salvage ship be the large quality over quantity counterpart to the reclaimer? We don't know. We'll have to see. Bluesy, salute to you. Hope you're well. Hope you're well. So we'll have to see, but obviously some big changes come into salvaging. From a technical change standpoint, field generation system, they're increasing the range, so it's increased up to 60 meters from where they were before. There's ship-specific fields now. Each ship now generates a different size salvage field matching their visual design. Repositioned sweet spots, so alignment sweet spots moved from dead center to ship-appropriate positions. Fracture time rebalancing, so there's a 5-time speed differential, massive performance gap between fastest and slowest ships. So in terms of how fast you can fracture it, I'm assuming. Speed rankings, fastest to slowest. Reclaimer will be the fastest at fracturing, while the Vulture will be the baseline, and you can take it from there. So I think the Fortune will actually be a little slower, right? They have the conversion rate system. So SCU per cubic meter optimization varies by ship. And then current live rankings, the reclaimer is the best available for the conversion rate system. So interesting. I'll need to dig into those a little bit, how and more of what they mean later. They have some field alignment sweet spot changes, obviously. And then let me bring... and then there is a new 3-tier material system. For raw material types, there's powder, which is high density, lowest yield after refining. Fastest refinery processing time, though, because it's already in powder form, so it doesn't have to be broken down. Scraps, which are medium density, medium yield and processing time. And then chunks, which are the lowest density, highest yield after refining, longest refinery processing time. So we're starting to see those first bits of material and material quality, right? We know that's going into crafting. We know that's going to be a thing. Refinery integration. All refinery decks can process these materials, by the way, I do see some refinery ships coming into production soon. Same end product. All materials refine into construction material, okay? Workflow, raw materials, go into the station inventory via the freight elevator and into the refinery process. It says here, time design. Small ships get quick turnaround. Large ships have extended processing but higher profits. Okay. Strategic implications. Operational models. Solo players use small ships for immediate gratification and quick profits. So you'll take out the fortune to get immediate construction or material for processing, and you get some money right away. Group operations. So this would be like your reclaimer. You will use the reclaimer for high volume operations, but with delayed but substantial payouts. Okay, hold that thought for a minute. We're going to circle back to that one. It says here mixed operations, on-site salvage production with dedicated transport ships for materials. So I almost wonder if the mixed operations thing is like ground base salvage stuff. Remains to be seen. I'm not really sure what mixed operations means. Economic balance. It says it's incomplete for the Evocati bill, but it says crew compensation, reclaimer profits designed to support full crew payments. That is really great, but CIG does need to start talking about what some sort of escrow system is going to look like so that you can prepay these people working for you and not leave them in the dirt. I think you'll have more people opt to join on these multi-crew missions if there was some sort of escrow system for the payment. Session-based versus delays. So small ship profits will be available immediately. Large ship profits require waiting periods. This is another problem and another reason why the escrow system is so critical. If you take out a crew in the reclaimer and you turn all that in and then you have to wait to pay them, that's going to de-incentivize people joining up for that. I do think those payments either need to be immediate or CIG needs to put that money into an escrow that when the wait out timer ends, that money directly goes to the people that work in your crew. I really think they need to work on that. I don't know if it's some sort of bigger feature to the MobiGlass money transfer app, MoTrader, but we do need something there. We're missing a key part of this payment system. I don't know what you all think about that. That's a very open. There's a lot of discussion that needs to happen there, but we do need a sort of payments processing sort of MobiGlass app. Something a little bit more nuanced than MoTrader, which is just sending money really quickly. We need a way to create these contracts. Maybe it is a contract you're creating and you send that to a player, and when they agree to it, it puts the money in escrow for the contract completion. They say here future integration for the crafting system. Again, going what I just said. Stepping stone design. Current system is not a placeholder, but a foundation for post-crafting implementation. So again, CIG is thinking about this crafting stuff. When crafting arrives, ships will produce the actual material they're built off of. So if you're salvaging a MSR, you're going to get the parts and pieces, you're going to get the materials that would make up an MSR. Refinery processing times and quality retention mechanics will remain consistent, meaning they don't want to shift that around a lot. They want you to be able to plan for it. And then quality systems chunks will retain material quality better than powder, which makes sense. If you get a big chunk of a ship and you salvage that, it's going to retain, or it's going to have probably higher probability to have high quality material in it because that material hasn't been pulverized into powder, right? And then it says additional gameplay updates, balance update for FPS tractor beams for snappier movement, faster rotations, and longer break times. Oh my God, CIG, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. The FPS tractor beams are garbage and need some serious fixing on all three of those points. Snappier movement, faster rotations, and longer break times. This was hugely affecting the resource drive event, and it's nice to see CIG is going to put the effort into getting that stuff fixed up. Thank you. Thank you. Let's make that useful so it doesn't always mean you need an Atlas or an ATLS. The large max lift tractor beam, that thing should be useful, and right now it's nothing but a pain in the ass to use. And then says here, updated sweep and clear missions to only display mission location in the player's local planetary system. Yeah, so there you go. So a lot of stuff coming out, and I think it's going to be like this as we trudge forward towards CitizenCon next week. So there's going to be a lot of stuff. My schedule, I'm going to try to keep the same. We're going to do a show next Tuesday. We're going to do a show, I think Wednesday or Thursday next week. I have to look. I think Wednesday. And then I might do a show on Friday. I'm not sure. Saturday, obviously a Citizen Con. I'm probably going to do something afterwards, possibly with Execute. I do need to talk to him. It's been a little hard to align our schedules. And then Sunday, don't forget everyone, Sunday evening, I want to have a sort of StarJump CitizenCon celebration. If you want to RSVP for that, there is the link in chat. Make sure you go over there, RSVP for that. It's just going to be where we all jump into Zoom. We all talk about CitizenCon, how it went, what we all think. I'll be there. Maybe some other people will be there, and it'll just be a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of fun. Who knows? We might have a CIG person stop by. No one has promised anything, but you never know. Could happen. That being said, it's just a very exciting time. I think my two big hopes for CitizenCon are the following. I hope we get a sneak peek of the Kraken. I really would like that. And then I would also like, if I had to just pick two, and it's a toss-up between Nyx and like base building crafting. I personally hope base building crafting is, I just hope the curtain is pulled back on it and it turns out it's coming like Q1 next year or something. I hope base building crafting is coming very, very, very soon. And I hope we get an update on the Kraken. My next two things I would like to see would be Nyx and an update on the Pioneer. Those are kind of the next things I would really enjoy seeing personally. What do you all think? Make sure to share this channel, please, with your friends. We really appreciate it. I do want to sort of continue to build the channel. You all have been just like instrumental in doing that. We've had some incredible growth lately, so I really, really do appreciate that. We did complete our sub goal for this one, so thank you very much, Bunker, and anyone else who subscribed. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. It is work day for me, so I got to get back to work, but I'm going to send you over to someone who needs no introduction. I've been on his show several times. Really great dude, super awesome. I'm going to send you over to Space Tomato Gaming. So everyone, stay tuned for more streams this weekend where we cover all the cool leaks that are popping up over the probably on a daily basis moving forward. But I'm going to send you over to Space Tomato. He's an awesome dude. Give him a little bit of that StarJump love if you never have. He's a genuinely nice guy, and I love watching his content. So that's going to be it. Everyone have a great rest of your Friday. I will see you this weekend. I'm probably going to do some gameplay this weekend, and then on Sunday I'll do my stream where we give away the Aegis Saber. Okay? Have a good day, everyone. Talk to you later.
Stuff going on. There's